Hi everyone. In these notes, we're going to go over the concept of metabolism and how it falls into chemical reactions and your body. Okay, so how are chemical reactions classified within anatomy and physiology, or special terms unique to anatomy and physiology when it applies to the chemistry of your body? So, in these notes, we're going to review the term metabolism, catabolism, anabolism, and then we'll spend some time going over what ATP is and why it's important. You probably have some familiarity with what ATP is from biology, but these three vocabulary words are probably new to you. Okay, so chemical reactions you should have learned in chemistry. So, this is when molecules are changed by either making or breaking bonds between atoms within a molecule, or just in general, making or breaking bonds between any atoms. Okay? So, if you have a big molecule and you snap one of the bonds in within a big molecule, that still counts as a chemical reaction. Likewise, if you have two separate atoms and you join them up with a chemical bond, that also counts as chemical reaction. So, that's all familiar. However, there are some special terms that are used in anatomy to specifically refer to what's happening in the body. So, you may have heard of metabolism before, but specifically in anatomy, metabolism refers to the sum of all reactions that occur in a cell or the organism. You may have used, oh, they have a really high metabolism in terms of dieting, but that's different. So, in anatomy, metabolism can even be as simple as putting on more fat because you are building up or doing reactions to add that fat to your body. So that's still metabolism. In terms of diet, when people talk about metabolism in terms of diet, they just mean someone who typically burns through more energy and therefore consumes and breaks down food more quickly than someone else. So that's a diet term. But in our class, when I use the term metabolism, I mean just any type of reaction in your body, whether it's about losing weight or gaining weight, those are still under metabolism of your body. Okay? Now, within metabolism, we can further break down it into different categories. So, catabolism and anabolism refer to different forms of metabolism. Okay? It's a lot of bullisms. All right. So, catabolism is metabolic reactions that break down stuff. Okay? So in this case, it's about breaking down big molecules into smaller pieces, and in this process, what we end up doing is releasing energy. Now, in one particular molecule and certain food molecules, those release a lot of energy. But in other cases, they might only release a little bit of energy. But either way, energy is released, okay? Overall. So you may need to put in some energy to kickstart the reaction, but once it starts, it goes very quickly and it helps overall produce energy your body can use. Okay? So AB represents the big molecule breaking down into A and B or separate smaller pieces, plus the additional energy. So a classic, really, really important molecule that helps release energy is ATP. So ATP is the big money molecule your body uses to move energy around it. So whenever you move your muscles, you're using ATP. When your brain is generating electricity, it's usually using ATP to help move electrons around, or ultimately create the current that you need to move electricity across your neurons. Okay? So in this case, the reason why is ATP, when it undergoes catabolism, it snaps a bond along its phosphates. So P is not the actual atom. It's actually phosphate, which is PO4. But but we just simplify it with P. I'll show you the real picture of ATP later on. But anyways, when you snap the bond in the phosphate ions on the ATP, what ends up happening is even though you didn't lose the phosphate, you just separated it from the main molecule, that still releases a ton of energy. A lot of energy. Okay? Other bonds that you break will release a little bit of energy, but not nearly as much as the amount of energy released when you snap ATP in pieces. Okay? Sometimes people get lazy about drawing out ATP, so instead of doing this part is a nucleotide and these are the phosphates that break apart to release energy. They just draw it out like a crappy pentagon with P stuck to it. But still, the basic idea is snap a bond within the three phosphates in the ATP, and you release a lot of energy. Okay, another kind of catabolism reaction is a smaller version. Not that the molecule is smaller, but it doesn't release as much energy. So in this case, you can just take a big molecule found in your body and break it down into littler pieces. So in this case, glycogen, which can form huge branching structures, glycogen is actually huge branches of glucose bonded together. So if you zoom in on the glycogen, you can see little glucose sugars all over. Remember, this kind of shape is the shortcut way we draw out glucose that we've done in the macromolecule stuff. But anyways, when you undergo catabolic reactions with them, what happens is you snap the bonds between the glycogen to separate the glucose, and in the process you will release a little bit of energy, though not as much as your big ticket molecule ATP. However, glucose itself, when you break that down, you can make a lot of ATP from that, if you remember it from biology with cellular respiration. Okay? Now, you may notice AKA hydrolysis if you took bio honors. Some classes refer to hydrolysis as the same thing as catabolism. They're used interchangeably. I only wrote this down for those of you who took biology honors and know the term. If you don't know the term hydrolysis, you don't have to worry about this one. You can kind of cross it off. It's just for those of you who already know the term. Okay? All right. You should just know catabolism is about breaking down big molecules, which also releases energy. Okay, the other type of metabolic reaction is the opposite of that. It's about building up molecules, building up big molecules that will ultimately play major roles in your body. When you build up fat reserves, when you build up muscle, this all involves anabolism or anabolic reactions, which is the creation of larger molecules from smaller molecules or atoms. So they're built, made, also known as synthesized, from atoms, ions, or molecules, just taking tinier pieces and putting them together. You may know this term as dehydration synthesis if you took bio honors. Again, this one is for those of you who already took bio honors and are just familiar with it. If you didn't, don't worry about it. Just focus on anabolism, or about building large molecules. But in this process, because you're building up the molecules, just like when you're building up a house, you have to put in some effort, which means you have to use up and take in some energy. Okay? So overall, you're going to lose energy by pouring it into building up this molecule. So in this case, my smaller pieces combine with energy to put into the bond to help create a bigger molecule, AB. So just like how ATP, the opposite of it being broken down, is making ATP. So I'm going to take my separate pieces of ADP and a phosphate, pour some energy into that, and that's going to help me build up a bigger molecule with an extra bond, and that molecule itself has a lot of energy in it. So in this case, I have ATP with all this energy inside the molecule and its bonds. Now, likewise, we talked about glycogen being broken down into glucose. I can do the opposite by taking in a little bit of energy, and my glucose pieces, I can glue them all together to make glycogen. And glycogen is a really great long-term storage molecule that allows you to take sugar out of your blood, because too much sugar in your blood is how you get diabetes and can damage your body. So if we have too much sugar in our blood, we can pull it out, shove it into glycogen, and then store that glycogen in our liver or our muscles or somewhere else where it won't damage our blood vessels. Okay? So in this case, we utilize a little bit of energy, though not a ton, to make this special structure that we can then store or squirrel away into our bodies. Okay, so you'll notice I talked about ATP a lot. A lot of the times when we make energy or we use energy, a lot of the times we'll grab it from ATP. Not always, right? ATP is actually getting its energy from the digestion of food molecules. But either way, ATP is a really critical way of moving energy around your body. So if I need energy to build up glycogen or build up muscle or build up fat, I might steal it from ATP. Or if I need energy to move my muscle, I might use it from ATP. So ATP is really critical. We'll go into that later on. So just reminding you, we have catabolism and anabolism. So catabolism is the breakdown of food or any other molecule into littler pieces, which will in the process release energy that you can use. And if you have excess energy, then you might as well store it for a later day. And in this case, we can store that energy by building up structures, by building things to store away in different parts of our body. Now, sometimes students mix up the two terms. So what are ways we can remember both these terms? Well, catabolism has the word cat. If you know anything about cats, is they're jerks that destroy things. So if that helps you remember that catabolism is about breaking things down, that's one thing that helps me. Maybe that's not your thing. Maybe you're really into sports or you're really into bodybuilding. Well, in this case, you might have heard of something that starts with anabol, like anabolic steroids. So in this case, anabolic steroids are not necessarily legal for sports use of drugs that help build up your muscles very quickly. It has a lot of side effects, so I don't recommend it. But in this case, anabolic steroids build up your muscles, makes you real swole. In this case, anabolism are reactions that build up and make larger molecules. Okay? All right. Now, going back to metabolism and those ATP, ADP batteries that I keep talking about, I want to make sure we know that molecule really well, because we're going to talk about it a lot, because it plays a really huge role, especially in muscles and our neurons and all that other stuff. We're going to talk about ATP a lot throughout the year. So, ATP, if you forgot, is also known as adenosine triphosphate. You may not remember the whole name, but you should have learned about ATP in biology, whether it was regular or honors. So these are special molecules with 3 phosphates on it. So the P is a phosphate. Okay? So the ATP is, the A part starts for adenosine, which is a nucleotide, and the P is phosphate. So when it says tri for 3, like tricycle has 3 wheels, I have 1, 2, 3 phosphates stuck together. Di means 2. So in this case, adenosine diphosphate has only 2 phosphates stuck together. The one with 3 phosphates has way more energy inside of it than the one with 2 phosphates in it. So if I have extra energy, especially from food, if I'm a human, then what my body will probably do is create ATP. If I need energy, what my body will do is take ATP and use it and break it in order to release energy from the ATP in order to do work in my body. So in this case, the ATP functionally works, and this is a simplified form of ATP and ADP, but either way, the ATP functionally works as a battery. Okay? So ATP and ADP are special nucleotide batteries, which means it's part of the nucleic acid family of the macromolecules, which means it's in the same family as DNA and RNA. In fact, the A in DNA, in the AGTC of DNA, is the adenosine, the nucleotide part, and then you just modify the A by shoving phosphates on it. But anyways, this is a nucleotide that's utilized as a battery. And again, when you have extra energy from food, you'll make ATP, but if you need energy, you'll take ATP and use it up and turn it into ADP to get energy out of it. Okay? So, if you don't want to write this whole thing down and pictures are better for you, then draw this picture as long as you understand what it means. And make sure you know ATP and ADP are nucleotides and part of the nucleic acids. Okay, so this is just another way of imaging the battery relationship, okay? If I have excess energy, I can charge up my battery. And if I need energy, then I'll use up my charged battery, and as a result, I'll have a less charged or partially dead battery. All right. Here are some kind of cartoony versions of just showing you the relationship. So this is the A part, the adenine or adenosine, the nucleotide, and then the pink represents the phosphates that you shove together. And anytime you crack off the phosphate, especially the last one, you get a lot of energy pouring out that you can utilize in your body wherever you need it to be. All right, so the takeaways, just remembering the reactions of your body where you break and form molecules, the sum total of all the reactions that help you do that are called metabolism. Metabolism has 2 versions. You could have anabolic reactions that store energy and build up larger molecules, Or you can have catabolic reactions or catabolism, which take large molecules and bust them down, which also in the process releases energy. And the most efficient molecule that will help release the most energy from for the least amount of reactions, for the least amount of effort, is ATP. So if I want a lot of energy, breaking down ATP is the most efficient way to get a good amount of energy out of a molecule. And in that process, you make ADP. So a lot of metabolism often utilizes a reaction with either the energy you pulled away from ATP or a reaction that releases energy that you're going to store by making ATP. All right, so that concludes the lesson on metabolism. Now, the next part of the lecture I recommend you do for your next lesson is to do the enzyme notes. If you are really, really familiar with enzymes, then I actually recommend that you don't do notes on enzymes and you just maybe do a review activity on enzymes and then do another lecture if you want instead. But if you have no familiarity with enzymes or you really forgot all about them, then I highly recommend the next thing you do is to do the enzyme lecture. All right, move on to your next work or whatever else you need to do. Bye.